Most mornings feel the same, but no one really talks about that. You wake up, but it's like your mind is still somewhere else. Your eyes open, your body moves, but inside, it's quiet. Too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Empty quiet. There's a noise in your head, yes, but it's not sound. It's more like pressure, a weight that lives in the background. You sit on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing, thinking about everything, and already you feel behind. The phone buzzes. The world starts asking things from you, but deep down you know you haven't given anything to yourself yet. You brush your teeth, you check your messages, you go through the motions, but something feels off, like you're running without knowing where you're going. And this happens every morning, again and again, until one day you forget what it felt like to really wake up. You look in the mirror and you see a tired version of yourself, not broken, just distant. You're not failing. You're just repeating. No one taught you how to start the day with intention. They taught you to be productive, to be fast, to be useful, but they never taught you how to be present. Before the emails, before the noise, before the pressure, there's a space, a small window. Most people miss it because it's quiet, because it's not on their calendar. But that space is everything. It's where you remember who you are before the world tells you who to be. And in that space, there are small choices, tiny habits, little acts that seem unimportant, but they change your mind. They change your life. Not all at once, but quietly, like seeds planted in silence. This video is not here to motivate you. It's here to hold up a mirror, to show you what you've been missing in the rush. So take a deep breath. Don't rush into the next thing. You've rushed enough. Let's go back to the beginning, to the first 5 minutes of your day, and quietly rebuild everything from there. There's something sacred about waking up before the world does, not because of discipline, not because of productivity, but because for a few minutes, you're still yours. You open your eyes, and for a moment, everything is still untouched. The air feels different. The room carries a kind of silence that only exists before the noise begins, before the demands, before the notifications, before life pulls you back into roles you didn't choose. But most people miss this moment. They wake up and immediately abandon themselves. The hand reaches for the phone. The screen lights up before their mind has even settled. The outside world enters before the inner world has returned. And that's the tragedy of modern mornings. They begin with distraction, not direction, with noise, not meaning. But what if you gave yourself that space? What if before touching anything, you let yourself arrive? No one ever told you this. But the first 5 minutes of your day decide who's in charge, you or everything else. When you wake before the world touches you, you reclaim the first breath. You don't rush, you don't react. You simply return to yourself. And in that return, something shifts. You remember that you're not just a task machine. You're not just here to answer emails, messages, and expectations. You're here to exist. And existence starts in silence. There is power in early hours, not the kind people post about, but the quiet kind, the kind that makes you feel real again. You stand, your feet touch the floor with presence, not to run, but to arrive. You breathe, not because an app told you to, but because you want to feel something real. This is the secret most people never discover. Your morning isn't a checklist. It's a mirror, and the way you show up in it echoes into everything else. Waking up early isn't about achievement. It's about alignment. It's about saying, I will not start this day in a rush I didn't choose. I will not let the world enter before I do. I will not miss myself again, because you've done that too many times, and you're tired of feeling empty by 9 a.m., so you wake up, not for the world, but for you. And in that decision, your life quietly begins to change. The first thing most people touch in the morning isn't the floor, isn't the breath, isn't even themselves. It's the phone. eyes barely open, and the thumb already knows where to reach, like a ritual, a habit rehearsed in silence until it becomes invisible. And that's the danger. You don't even notice anymore. But let's be honest, you're not checking the time. You're not checking something important. You're escaping, even before the day begins. Before you've even taken a deep breath, you've already allowed someone else's thoughts to enter your mind, their opinions, their problems, their noise. And slowly, without resistance, you become part of that noise. You leave yourself without even saying goodbye. That's what scrolling does. It's not about distraction. It's about disconnection from your body, from your awareness, from your ability to be here, now. And here's the truth no one says out loud. The addiction didn't start when you were overwhelmed. It started when you forgot how to be still, when silence became uncomfortable, when presence felt foreign. The phone gave you something to grab. But what it really took was your morning. You can't reprogram your mind if the first voice you hear isn't your own, if the first light you see is artificial, if the first emotion you feel is comparison. You start your day already behind, already scattered. You see someone else's life and forget your own rhythm. You feel urgency for things that don't matter. You enter a race that was never yours. So here's a small act, simple but powerful. Don't touch the phone. Touch your presence before the screen. Feel your breath before the messages. Ask yourself, what do I need this morning? Before the dopamine hit, feel your own pulse. Check in, not online, but inside. The world can wait. And if it can't, then maybe it shouldn't be first, because the moment you delay that impulse, even just for 5 minutes, you remember something ancient, something real, that you're still in control, that your time isn't owned, that your mind is a garden, not a billboard. Most people wake up and hand over their attention like it's nothing, but you're learning to guard it, not with fear, not with rules, but with reverence, because how you begin is how you become. So tomorrow morning, or better yet, the next breath, don't reach for the screen. Reach for presence. Place your hand on your chest. Close your eyes. Breathe once. Breathe again. And ask, what part of me have I been ignoring? That question is more important than any notification. You don't need to escape your mornings anymore. You need to return to them, one breath at a time. Look around. What do you see when you wake up? Not just the objects, but the messages behind them. The chair with clothes you didn't fold, the cup from yesterday's coffee, the shoes not in place, the bed half made, half forgotten. These are not just details, they're echoes. And every morning they speak to your mind before you even realize it. You think it's just a messy room, but your mind reads it differently. It says, I'm behind, I'm overwhelmed, I don't care. And over time, your nervous system believes it. A room left in disorder becomes a mind that normalizes chaos. It's not about being perfect. It's not about making everything spotless. It's about understanding that the outer world always mirrors the inner one, and vice versa. Cleaning your space isn't about cleaning the room. It's about reclaiming clarity. It's about taking back control, not with force, but with awareness. Because when the room is heavy, your thoughts become slower. Your energy drops. You move, but without direction. And most people never question this. They just say, I'm tired. But it's not just fatigue, it's weight, visual noise, mental fog that comes from waking up in a battlefield you never chose to enter. So here's the silent act. Before you leave your space, put something in order. Make the bed, even if it's just straightening the sheet. Pick up that shirt, wipe the sink, align your shoes. You don't do it because someone told you to. You do it because you are watching. And when you watch yourself act with care, you feel different. You remember you have power. This isn't about cleaning. This is about self-respect. It's about sending a silent message to your own nervous system. I'm safe here. I'm in control here. I'm not abandoned. Even the mirror changes. Even your reflection softens. Because suddenly, the room starts agreeing with who you want to become. And maybe that's what you've been needing. Not another life hack. Not another promise of change. Just a tiny act of realignment. Done in silence. Done for yourself. You won't find this advice in motivational books because it's not dramatic. It doesn't sell, but it works. And it works because it's human. We crave order, not to impress, but to breathe. So if your mind feels blurry, start with your space. If your purpose feels lost, start with your space. If your confidence is low, don't look for words. Look for one corner you can bring back to harmony. You don't need a perfect room. You just need to stop agreeing with the mess. Because every time you walk past that pile of clothes and say nothing, you're silently telling yourself, this is who I am now. But you're not. You're just disconnected. So reconnect, not with motivation, but with action. Touch the chaos and make one thing better. Then look again and you'll notice. Your sight changes when your space does. Most people breathe, but they don't remember that they're breathing. They wake up, get dressed, move through routines, but their breath is shallow, tight, hidden beneath layers of tension they've carried for years. No one taught us to notice the breath. They taught us to run, to chase, to endure, but not to pause, not to return. So we move like machines, fast on the outside, disconnected on the inside. And the truth is, you can't reprogram your mind if you've forgotten how to be inside your own body. There's a moment, right before you open the door, right before you step into the noise, where everything is still yours. And in that moment, you can reclaim something most people have lost: control of your own state, not by thinking, not by planning, by breathing, deeply, intentionally, like you're saying, I am here, this is my space, this is my day. Because if you don't choose your state, the world will choose it for you. Someone else's stress will enter, someone else's urgency will hijack your calm, and before you know it, your whole nervous system is reacting to a life that doesn't feel like yours. So pause. Before the keys, before the emails, before the traffic, before the performance, stand still, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it, feel it, and release slowly. Not because it's trendy, not because a meditation app told you, but because it's ancient, because it's real. The breath has always been there, but you forgot to meet it. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. Inhale like you're remembering something. Exhale like you're letting go of what you can't carry. That's the power most people overlook. Not loud strength, but silent regulation. Because when your breath is calm, your thoughts follow. Your voice softens, your choices become clearer, and you don't fall into the rhythm of chaos. You create your own pace. This isn't about control. It's about returning to the place where you're no longer performing for the day, but choosing how to show up in it. One breath, one moment, right before the world pulls you. So tomorrow, before you walk out the door, don't check the clock. Don't run toward the next thing. Just stop, close your eyes, and breathe like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. There's a word that carries quiet power, a word most people forget how to use, or fear they'll be punished if they do. No, just 2 letters, 1 syllable, but for many, impossible to say, not because they don't want to, but because they feel they have to justify everything, every boundary, every refusal, every silence, as if protecting your peace requires permission. It doesn't. And deep down, you know that. You've said yes when your whole body screamed no. You've agreed to things that drained you just to avoid discomfort. You've stretched yourself thin just to keep the peace, even when it cost your own. But here's the truth. If your peace depends on pleasing everyone, you've already lost it. Saying no isn't rejection, it's recognition. of your limits, of your values, of your time, and of your soul. And it doesn't need a long speech. It doesn't need guilt attached to it. It doesn't need to be wrapped in apology. No can be complete, firm, respectful, and most importantly, totally yours. But society teaches the opposite. Be agreeable, be available, be nice, be easy to work with. But no one teaches you how to protect your own inner world without explanation. So let me remind you, you are not obligated to be exhausted just because someone else is uncomfortable. You are not cruel for choosing your mental health. You are not selfish for saying, "I can't do this right now." And you are not wrong for refusing to carry what was never yours. Silence is a boundary. Stillness is a decision. And no can be the most loving word you ever speak to yourself. So here's the silent act. Say no to one thing today, without explaining, without softening it, without guilt. And when the discomfort comes, breathe, let it rise, let it pass. Let yourself feel what it's like to honor your own line in the sand. You don't owe anyone your constant availability. You owe yourself presence, energy, clarity, truth. If saying yes means betraying yourself, then it's already a no. And the more you practice this, the more you'll notice something strange. People will still survive. The world won't end, and your peace will begin to grow roots, quietly, strongly, like a tree that no longer bends with every wind. You don't need to justify your boundaries to be worthy of having them. You just need to believe that your silence is already enough. And that kind of power can't be explained, only lived. We write things all the time, lists, messages, notes we don't mean, words that disappear as fast as they come. But how often do you write something that actually shapes you? Not a to-do, not a goal, not a motivation quote you copied from someone else, but a sentence that comes from the part of you that still remembers who you are. There's something different about writing something by hand when it comes from a deeper place. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be long. It just has to be true. The act of writing in silence with intention turns thoughts into something sacred. It's no longer floating in your head. It becomes real, visible, alive. That's why ancient traditions used written words as vows, not because they were dramatic, but because writing makes things stick. It slows you down. It asks you to choose carefully. It becomes a mirror. So here's the silent act. Every morning, write one sentence, not about what you have to do, but about who you want to be. Not a plan, a vow, something small, grounded, present. Something like, "Today I move slow, even if the world is in a hurry." Or, "I will not betray myself to be liked." Or even simpler, "I choose to show up with calm." It's not about sounding wise, it's about being honest. And when you write that sentence, you anchor yourself, you leave a trace, you create a thread between intention and action. Because the world will try to pull you off track. It always does. But when you've written your vow, you have something to return to. A compass, a reminder, a line you chose, not out of fear, but out of clarity. No one has to see it. You don't have to post it. You don't have to explain it, just write it and feel what it does. It takes 2 minutes, but it plants something deeper than most people will ever notice. It tells your mind, "I am not random. I am not reactive. I am moving with intention." And even if everything else in your day feels out of control, you'll know you began with something real. That one sentence is your line in the sand. It may not stop the storm, but it will remind you that you're not drifting anymore, you're steering. Quietly, one word at a time, you step into the shower. The water hits your skin, and for most people, that's it. Just another task, another thing to do before rushing out the door. But what if it wasn't? What if this moment, this simple act, was a doorway? Not to cleanliness, but to presence, to memory, to something ancient in you that's been waiting to return. Water has always been more than water. It baptizes, it blesses, it washes more than skin, it clears energy, it quiets noise. But only if you let it. When you shower with urgency, you carry the rush with you. You scrub in tension, you move in speed, you leave without receiving anything real. But when you slow down, something shifts. You start to feel again. You start to notice the warmth, the sound, the weight of water running down your back, the breath that returns as your muscles finally let go. This is not self-care, it's self-recovery. A few minutes where you don't need to perform, don't need to prove, don't need to impress anyone. You're just there, alone, naked, real. And in that space, you can drop everything the world told you to carry. The roles, the shame, the pressure, the fear, let the water take it. Not all at once, but slowly, gently, one drop at a time. Because you don't need to fight to be whole again. You just need to remember. And water has a way of reminding you that you were never broken, just buried. So here's the act. Treat your shower like a sacred ritual. Not something to rush through, but something to be present for. Close your eyes, feel the stream. Let the noise in your mind dissolve with the soap. And as you rinse, release. Not just dirt, not just sweat, but thoughts that don't belong to you, beliefs you didn't choose, exhaustion that isn't yours, pain you've carried long enough. Whisper if you have to, or say nothing at all, just let it go. You don't need incense, you don't need mantras, you just need permission. Permission to be still, to be quiet, to be human. This is where you start again, every day. In a space where no one is watching, where no one is asking anything from you, only water and your willingness to meet yourself again. There's a kind of peace that lives in this act, not the loud kind, not the kind that comes from fixing everything, but the kind that comes from simply allowing yourself to be real. If you've been feeling numb, this is where you begin to feel again. If you've been running, this is where you stop. And if you've been holding too much, this is where you let it fall. You don't need to wait for a breakdown to start paying attention. You can do it here, now, in the shower, in silence, in warmth. Because healing doesn't always come in big moments. Sometimes it comes in the quiet drip of water on your neck, reminding you that you're still alive, and you still belong to yourself. Most people don't think twice about what they wear. They throw something on, whatever's clean, whatever fits, whatever doesn't make them feel too exposed. But there's a quiet truth behind that routine. How you dress is how you meet the day. Not in terms of fashion, not to impress, not to look powerful, but to send a message and to yourself. When you dress with intention, you say, I'm awake, I'm here, I'm choosing. But when you dress with avoidance, you say, I'm hiding, I'm surviving. I just need to get through. And your nervous system listens, your body listens, your posture changes, your presence changes. This isn't about clothes, it's about energy. The act of choosing what you wear can either ground you or disconnect you. You've had mornings like this. You put on anything, didn't think twice, and all day you felt off, not because of the fabric, but because it never aligned with who you wanted to be. It didn't carry your energy, it didn't speak for you, it didn't remind you of yourself. And here's what most people miss. Your clothing is a mirror, not for the world, but for you. It reflects your inner state before you've spoken a word, and when you stop choosing it with care, you slowly stop choosing yourself with care. It becomes one more area of life where you go on autopilot, where you stop asking what feels right, where you stop remembering that everything is a choice, even this. So here's the silent act. When you wake up, pause and ask, who am I meeting today? Who do I want to be in that meeting? Is this outfit something I picked or something I defaulted to? And that's not about style. You can be simple, minimal, raw. But even simplicity can be sacred when chosen with attention. Don't dress to disappear. Don't dress to hide. Dress to face the day, to embody your presence, to remind yourself that you exist and that you matter, even when no one is watching. Because there's a type of discipline that doesn't shout. It doesn't show up in the gym or in loud routines. It shows up in the way you treat the details no one else sees. And clothing is one of them, not as vanity, but as embodiment. What would it look like to dress like someone who respects themselves? Not perfectly, not to impress, but with dignity. Maybe it's just one item, a shirt you actually like, shoes that feel grounded, a color that reflects how you want to feel. And maybe over time, you begin to notice something shift. You start walking differently. You start standing taller. You start noticing yourself again, not through the eyes of others, but through your own. And when you see yourself clearly, the world feels less threatening, less chaotic, because you're no longer hiding inside your own life. You're meeting it, face forward, foot grounded, mind present. You don't need to spend more. You don't need to follow trends. You don't need anyone's approval. You just need to ask yourself one quiet question. Am I dressing for presence or for escape? And if it's escape, you know what to do, because the world might not notice, but you will, and that is more than enough. Most people only say thank you after something good happens, after something obvious, something visible, something that proves life is going right. But there's a deeper kind of gratitude, one that doesn't wait, one that isn't transactional, one that doesn't depend on conditions. It's the kind that comes before anything happens, before you see the result, before the evidence shows up. It's the kind that says, I trust the process, even when I don't understand it yet. And that kind of gratitude rewires your mind, because now you're not reacting to life. You're participating in it. You're declaring silently that something good is coming, even if it's taking time. It's not naive. It's not blind optimism. It's alignment. Because when you live in constant survival mode, you only react. You only feel safe when things are certain. You only breathe when things go your way. But the person who gives thanks in advance is free. Not because life is perfect, but because their mindset is rooted, anchored, silent, and powerful. So here's the act. Before you leave your house, before you step into the noise, pause, close your eyes, put your hand on your chest, and whisper a thank you for something that hasn't happened yet. It doesn't need to be big, it doesn't need to be dramatic, just something real, something from your core. Thank you for the peace I'm building. Thank you for the people I haven't met yet. Thank you for the strength I don't see, but feel. This small act, done in silence, done in solitude, is not about pretending. It's about remembering that you are part of something greater, that you are not forgotten, that just because it hasn't arrived doesn't mean it's not on the way. Gratitude is a signal, not to the world, but to your own nervous system. It says, I'm safe, I'm not chasing, I'm already aligned. And from that place, you make better decisions, you breathe deeper, you trust yourself more, because you're not waiting for the miracle, you're living like it's already begun. And here's the paradox. When you give thanks before you see it, you often start seeing it, not because the world changed, but because you did. You're no longer a beggar of outcomes. You're a builder of states. You're no longer saying, I'll be grateful if... You're saying, I'm grateful now, and that changes everything. So before you go, before the day swallows your attention, whisper your thank you, not out loud, not for anyone to hear, just for you, and walk into the day with a quiet confidence that only those rooted in gratitude understand, because hope is fragile, but gratitude is grounded. Watch how people move in the morning. They don't walk, they rush. Every step feels like it's chasing something or running from something, eyes half open, jaw tight, shoulders forward. They're already late, not just for work, but for themselves. Even before the day begins, the nervous system is on high alert. There's no room for pause, no space to arrive, only motion, only noise, only tension, and the body absorbs that. It memorizes it. It starts to believe that living equals rushing, that movement equals worth, that speed equals survival. But here's what no one tells you. Your pace becomes your perception. If you walk fast, you start thinking fast. You start feeling like time is slipping, like you're behind, like you're not allowed to be slow, not even for a moment. And over time, you lose the ability to be present, to just be. So here's a question no one asks. What if the way you walk is shaping your entire mindset? Not metaphorically, literally. Because walking slower, on purpose, sends a signal to your brain. I'm not in danger. I have space. I don't need to hurry to be enough. And that signal changes everything. It changes how you breathe, how you speak, how you process what happens around you. It softens your reactions. It calms your emotions. It brings you back to your body, to your breath, to the moment. You don't need to change the world to feel better. You just need to change the rhythm of your own footsteps. Even just for 5 minutes, even just from the door to the street, even just from your car to the entrance, let your walk be a meditation, not of silence, but of slowness, of weight, of awareness. Feel your heel hit the ground. Feel the fabric on your shoulders. Feel the way the air moves when you choose not to rush. It's all information. It's all medicine. When you walk slower, you send yourself a message that no one else can give you. I am allowed to exist without running. And you'll notice something strange. You see more, you hear more, you feel more, because your senses finally have space to speak, because you've stopped sprinting past the moment. You've made room for yourself. This doesn't mean you'll never rush again. There will be busy days, there will be urgency, but that doesn't have to be your default state. You can learn to shift, to slow, to reclaim your movement as a form of presence, not performance, and it starts in the morning. Before the pressure hits, before the clock dictates your value, you don't have to walk like you're behind. You don't have to move like something's wrong. You don't have to keep agreeing with the chaos. Because every step you take is an opportunity to remind yourself, I'm here, I'm not rushing, I'm enough, even in stillness. And that kind of awareness changes how you carry your entire life, before the cars start, before the phones buzz. Before the notifications flood in with things you didn't ask for, there's a window. It doesn't last long. It's easy to miss. But if you catch it, if you learn to protect it, you start the day differently than most people ever will. It's the moment of silence that still belongs to you. And it's not just the absence of noise. It's not about turning everything off. It's about allowing what's real to rise before everything artificial takes over. Because once the world wakes up, it starts pulling. Emails, voices, obligations, opinions, expectations. And if you don't have silence before that begins, you'll lose yourself in it. You'll forget your own tone. You'll forget your own rhythm. You'll become a reaction instead of a presence. Silence is not just stillness. It's alignment. It's where you hear the things you've been ignoring, where you remember that your mind isn't just a tool. It's a space, a home, a landscape that can be either polluted or purified. And that choice starts before the noise begins. You don't need an hour, you don't need a mountain, you just need a few sacred minutes where nothing enters, no demands, no stimulation, no pretending, just you and the echo of your own breath. Sit or stand by the window or light a candle or do nothing at all. Just be there, awake, but not on. Let your nervous system understand that it's not about being passive. It's about being rooted. Because silence doesn't mean weakness. It means sovereignty. When you begin the day from that space, even if it's just 3 minutes, you train yourself to respond instead of react, to pause instead of panic, to choose instead of chase. And here's the part no one tells you. It feels strange at first, uncomfortable, even awkward. You'll want to grab something, fix something, fill the void, because we've been trained to fear the quiet. But if you stay, if you sit with the silence long enough, you start to hear things that matter. The truth beneath your distractions, the part of you that still believes in something, the emotion you've been avoiding, the clarity that's been knocking on the inside of your chest. That's not emptiness, that's you coming back online. And once you feel it, you won't want to give it up again, because that silence becomes a shield. It becomes a foundation, a place you return to, not to escape life, but to meet it with strength. So here's your act. Don't just wake up early, wake up inwardly. And before you speak, before you consume, before you absorb the world, sit in silence. Let it cleanse you, let it sharpen you, let it center you. This is not a productivity hack, this is a reclamation. You are not just a participant in the chaos, you are a presence within it. And presence requires silence to be born. Every storm has an eye, a calm center. Become that eye, not by avoiding life, but by remembering who you are before life comes knocking. Most people wake up and immediately ask, what do I have to do today? They reach for the calendar, check the messages, open the list. And just like that, they hand the direction of their day over to someone else. They live by instruction, by external demands, by reminders, alarms, and agendas. And they forget something vital, that a life driven only by instruction becomes a life without intention. You can spend years this way, waking up, doing the tasks, ticking the boxes, and still feel completely disconnected. Not because you're failing, but because you're not choosing. And that's where the fracture begins. When your first thought is always about what others expect, you lose your ability to ask what you expect from yourself. And over time, you stop asking altogether. But here's what no one teaches. Structure without soul is still emptiness. Productivity without presence is still avoidance. Achievement without alignment is still loss. So here's the silent act. Start the day with intention. Before the have to, before the should, before the noise. Ask a different question. What kind of presence do I want to bring into today? Not what needs to be done, but how you want to exist while doing it. Because that question, subtle, quiet, inward, changes everything. It shifts the energy behind your actions. It roots you in awareness. It reminds you that you're not just a task manager. You're a human being with agency. Intention is the difference between pressure and peace, between autopilot and authorship, between existings and living. And no, intention isn't magic. It won't erase stress. It won't make your schedule disappear. But it will give your soul a seat at the table, even for just a few minutes. And sometimes, that's all it takes to remember you're still in here, still aware, still capable of directing your inner compass before the world tries to hijack it. You don't need to light candles. You don't need affirmations. You don't need motivation. You just need a pause, a question, a willingness to meet the day, not as a threat, but as a space where you choose, I will show up with calm. I will move with integrity. I will not let urgency define my worth. And from that space, the list still gets done. The tasks still happen. But now they move through you, not over you. You are no longer reacting. You are creating, silently, softly, with strength. That's what intention really is, not loud declarations, but quiet direction, a steady hand on the wheel before the current gets strong. So tomorrow, before the tasks, before the meetings, before the performance, pause. Close your eyes. Ask, who do I want to be inside this day? And let the answer shape everything that follows, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're trying to remember who you are when no one else is telling you what to do. That's the foundation of silent discipline and the beginning of freedom. Big transformations don't start with big actions. They start with something small, Done come total presence. But most people miss this because they're always waiting for the grand moment, the breakthrough, the new plan, the perfect motivation. They think change will arrive like a wave, but it never does. It comes like a drop, a breath, a step, and if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. You'll miss the quiet moment that could have shifted everything, just because it didn't look impressive enough. That's the great illusion, that to change your life, you need to do something big. But you don't. You just need to start by doing something fully. Make the bed, not just to check a box, but to remind yourself that your space matters, that you matter. Drink your water, slowly. Feel it go down. Feel what it means to care for your body even before the world asks anything from you. Stretch, not for flexibility, but to remember that you're not just a head full of thoughts. You have a body that carries more than tension, a body that carries you. These things seem small, but they carry weight if done with attention, because presence rewires your mind. It shifts your nervous system from chaos to clarity. And every time you complete a small act with your whole being, you teach yourself something powerful. I finish what I start. I move with intention. I'm not chasing approval. I'm living aligned. You stop needing noise. You stop needing to prove, because your power is no longer borrowed from results or reactions. It's rooted in the way you show up for the tiniest moments. And that's what builds trust with yourself. That's what dissolves the guilt, the shame, the delay. Not more effort, but more depth. The world will keep telling you to do more, to be more, to move faster, to hustle harder. But maybe the real shift is learning to be in what you're already doing, to feel your steps, to breathe into the silence, to move your hand with care when you fold a towel or close a drawer, to look in the mirror and actually see yourself without judgment, just presence. Because presence is what heals, not noise, not perfection, not another goal. So tomorrow, don't start with a list. Start with one small act. Do it like it matters. Do it like no one's rushing you. Do it like it's the most important thing you'll do that day, because it is. It's the act that tells your mind, this is who I am now. I move with calm. I don't need to be loud to be strong. That's what reprograms you. Not speeches, not pressure, but presence. And presence doesn't come later. It comes now, in the smallest thing you're willing to do with your full soul behind it. Every morning, before anything else happens, you receive something no one else can give you. Your energy, not your schedule, not your obligations, not your deadlines, your raw internal capacity to show up for life. That energy is your real wealth. And most people spend it like it's infinite. They open their eyes and immediately give it away, to notifications, to bad news, to overthinking. They leak energy before they even get out of bed, and they wonder why they feel empty by noon. It's not the workload, it's not the people, it's not even the pressure, it's the lack of protection. Because energy doesn't disappear by force. It escapes through unconscious consent, through habits that feel harmless but cost more than you realize. That first scroll, that small conversation you didn't want to have, that commitment you said yes to, again. And here's the truth no one teaches. Your energy is not neutral. Where you place it determines what grows. If you give it to chaos, you amplify confusion. If you give it to silence, you amplify clarity. If you give it to noise, you lose your own voice. So here's your silent act. Treat your energy like sacred currency. Would you hand your bank account to a stranger? No. So why do you hand your emotional power to people, problems, and patterns that don't honor it? This shift doesn't start with a radical change. It starts with awareness. Ask yourself every morning, where am I investing my attention? What's costing me energy without return? Who has access to me that shouldn't anymore? Because not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Not every thought deserves a response. Not every problem is yours to carry. Protecting your energy doesn't mean isolating. It means discerning. It means not arguing with what drains you, not chasing what confuses you, not proving your worth to what already doubts you. Some of the most powerful decisions you'll ever make will be silent, invisible, internal, saying no without guilt, pausing without apology, walking away without explanation. And the world might not notice, but you will, your body will, your mind will, your peace will. You'll start to feel lighter, not because life changed, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours. So tomorrow morning, don't just plan your day, guard it. Don't just write goals, write boundaries. Don't just prepare your tasks, protect your focus. Your energy is your fire, your fuel, your compass. And if you waste it on what doesn't matter, you'll have nothing left for what does. Every day, you wake up, but your mind doesn't, not fully. Because it's still carrying things from days you can't return to, conversations that ended badly, mistakes you keep replaying, regrets that follow you like shadows. And without even noticing, you start your morning from yesterday's pain, not from presence, not from now, from echoes, from weight. You brush your teeth with shame. You drink your coffee with tension. You step outside wearing guilt like a second skin. And it's not your fault. The world doesn't teach you to release. It teaches you to accumulate, to store, to suppress. But what if you began your day differently? Not with pressure, not with productivity, but with release, letting go. Not because the past doesn't matter, but because you do. Letting go, not to erase it, but to reclaim yourself. Here's a question that can change everything. What am I still carrying that didn't start this morning? And when you answer that, honestly, softly, without judgment, you open the door to freedom. You don't need a ritual. You don't need an answer. You just need one clear breath that says, this doesn't belong to today. Because if you don't put it down, you'll carry it into places that don't deserve it. You'll speak from wounds instead of wisdom. You'll react from memory instead of presence. And slowly, your future becomes a copy of what hurt you. But it doesn't have to. You're allowed to begin again, without dragging every version of yourself into the room. You're allowed to look in the mirror and meet yourself where you are, not where you failed. This is the silent discipline, to wake up and not just prepare your body, but clear your soul. To say to your own mind, not today, not this story, not this weight. To walk forward without the need to explain what you're leaving behind. Because peace isn't found in fixing the past, it's found in not letting it define this moment. And yes, it takes strength. Yes, it feels unfamiliar. But so did carrying all that pain once. So tomorrow morning, when the thoughts come flooding back, pause and say quietly, that happened, but it's not happening now. I remember, but I release. I've carried this long enough. Then breathe, then walk, then meet the day like someone who chose to arrive, not as a victim of yesterday, but as a creator of now. Most people fear silence. They fill it without thinking, music, scrolling, talking just to avoid the weight of quiet. But silence is not emptiness. It's not the absence of life. It's the space where life begins again. Because silence isn't hollow, it's full of truth, the kind that can't be heard when the world is too loud. It's where your real thoughts rise, not the ones shaped by noise, but the ones that come from your center. And most people never meet that part of themselves, because silence requires courage, it requires presence, it demands that you stop performing, even for yourself. But once you cross that threshold, you start to feel something you forgot was there: clarity, ground, weight without pressure, stillness without stagnation. This is the mistake most make. They confuse silence with passivity, as if being still means being weak, as if quiet means nothing is happening. But in silence, the roots are growing, the mind is realigning, the body is recalibrating, the soul is speaking. And if you don't protect that space, you'll spend your whole life reacting, chasing, overcorrecting, filling voids that weren't voids, just invitations to listen. So here's your act. Start your day with silence, before strategy, before stimulation, before speed. Even just for 5 minutes, sit, stand, breathe, do nothing. Let the discomfort come. Let the noise in your mind rise and let it settle. Don't fight it. Don't analyze. Just allow it to pass. And beneath it, you'll find something rare, a calm that isn't manufactured, a power that doesn't need to announce itself. This is where you become steady, before the world tests you, before the demands arrive, before the tension creeps in. You're not avoiding life. You're preparing to face it without shaking every time it changes. And slowly, that silence becomes your foundation, a place you can return to anywhere, anytime, even in chaos, even in noise, because silence is not a room, it's a state. And once you learn to create it in yourself, you carry it everywhere. You speak differently, move differently, react less, feel more. So tomorrow morning, give yourself those few minutes, not as a break, but as a ritual, a remembering. That before the noise, before the weight, before the roles, there is you, quiet, alive, ready. You don't need to say much. In fact, you don't need to say anything, because long before you open your mouth, your presence already spoke, and everyone around you heard it, even if they couldn't explain what they felt. It's in how you walk into a room, in the way your eyes move, or don't, in how your body holds itself, in the silence between your breaths, in the tension or calm that enters with you. People don't remember your quotes. They remember how they felt in your presence. And that feeling is shaped not by charm, not by perfection, but by your internal state. Most people try to speak their value, to explain their worth, to be understood through effort and noise. But your real power is not in what you say. It's in what you carry when you say nothing, and that comes from presence. Presence is built in the quiet, in the choices no one sees, in the mornings when you align before performing, in the breath you take before reacting, in the decision to be instead of just do. When you enter a space with presence, you change the temperature. You bring stillness into the chaos, not with force, but with grounded clarity. People won't always know why they trust you, why they soften around you, why they listen when you speak. But deep down, it's because you're anchored. You're not reaching, you're not hiding, you're not rushing to fill the silence with noise. And that is rare, rare enough to shift a room, rare enough to make others pause. Because in a world obsessed with volume, quiet confidence feels like truth. Here's your practice. Stop trying to impress with words. Start cultivating energy that speaks before you do. It starts with how you wake up, how you breathe, how you choose your thoughts, how you protect your state before the world pulls you into reaction. Your presence isn't built in public, it's built in private, in the invisible decisions that slowly shape how you carry yourself. You can't fake it, you can't perform it, you can only become it. And that's what makes it powerful. So tomorrow morning, before you speak, before you explain, ask yourself, what energy am I bringing with me today? Because that energy is the first thing people feel, and the last thing they forget. There's a silent belief that most people carry. They don't speak it out loud, but they live by it every day. If I'm not moving fast, I'm falling behind. If I slow down, I'll lose my chance. If I rest, maybe I'll be forgotten. This belief is not conscious. It's inherited from a world that confuses speed with value and urgency with importance. You've probably felt it yourself, that low hum of pressure from the moment you wake up. The push to do more, faster, the guilt when you pause, the fear that someone else is getting ahead while you're still breathing. But here's what no one says. Your worth isn't measured by your pace, and rest is not a failure. You don't have to rush to matter. You don't have to chase every opportunity to be valid. You don't need to answer every message instantly to be respected. Your value lives in who you are, not how fast you move. And when you forget that, you burn, quietly, slowly. From the inside out, you start living like a machine, not a human. You start reacting instead of choosing. You start existing in loops instead of direction. But there's a different way. It begins the moment you say, I can move slower and still arrive. I can take my time and still be enough. I don't have to rush just to feel like I'm alive. This isn't about laziness. It's about sovereignty, the ability to choose your pace instead of being dragged by pressure. You reclaim that power in the morning, not when the world is watching, but when it's just you, the breath, the silence, the body that no longer wants to run, but to feel again. Start with the first step of your day. Move slower, feel more. Speak with space between your words. Eat without distraction. Walk without needing to arrive quickly. You'll notice something strange. Time stretches. Anxiety softens. Presence returns, because your body remembers this pace. It's natural. It's human. It's honest. The urgency was the lie. Your soul never needed to be fast. It just needed to be real. So let that be your discipline, not to speed up, but to slow down with dignity. To remember that worth isn't earned by exhaustion. It's lived through awareness. Tomorrow morning you'll feel it again, the pull to rush, to prove, to keep up. But you don't have to answer. You can choose stillness. You can choose deliberate motion. You can choose to be grounded, even when everything around you isn't. And that quiet choice rebuilds your nervous system, reclaims your mind, restores your self-respect. Because from now on, you don't need to rush to be enough. You already are. Most people think discipline is something you can see. They picture it as waking up early, sweating in the gym, crossing tasks off a perfect list. They imagine noise, intensity, achievement. But real discipline starts much earlier. And it's almost invisible. It happens in silence, before anyone is watching, before there's anything to show for it. It's in the moment you choose not to check your phone, in the breath you take instead of reacting, in the choice to sit still for 2 minutes, even when your mind begs for distraction. It's the decision to stay with your discomfort, to observe your resistance, to not abandon yourself when things get uncomfortable. That's discipline, not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that rebuilds your nervous system without needing applause. The kind that no one will ever thank you for, but that changes the way you walk into every room. Because the truth is, discipline isn't built in what the world sees. It's built in what only you see. The thought you don't feed, the urge you don't obey, the story you refuse to repeat. It's choosing what aligns, not what screams. It's learning to stay present when every cell in your body wants to escape. And that presence, that groundedness, isn't built in public. It's built in the invisible moments where you choose truth over comfort, structure over chaos, stillness over stimulation. That's what no one teaches you. They teach habits, routines, motivational tricks. But they don't teach how to hold yourself when no one's there to validate you. And that's where discipline actually begins. Not with achievement, but with alignment. Not with force, but with choice. Not with willpower, but with awareness. You become disciplined, not by doing more, but by being fully in what you already do. By brushing your teeth with attention. By drinking your water like it matters. By walking like your body deserves to arrive whole. Not rushed. That's not small. That's not soft. That's power most people will never understand. And you won't always see the results immediately, but you'll feel them. In the way your thoughts slow down. In the way your anxiety loses grip. In the way you look at yourself in the mirror without needing to fake it. Discipline is not a show, it's a foundation, and once it's built, no one can take it from you. You won't find them on social media. They're not the kind people post about. They don't come with streaks, trophies, or applause, but they're the habits that hold your life together. The ones no one sees, the ones you don't talk about, the ones that don't look impressive but feel like oxygen, like waking up before the noise. Like standing in silence before turning on the lights, like making your bed without telling anyone. These habits, they don't announce themselves, they don't scream for attention, they just do their job. And quietly, they build something permanent. Because strength isn't in what you show, it's in what you repeat without needing recognition. Anyone can do something big once, but it takes depth to do something small, every single day. That kind of discipline doesn't create quick results. It creates identity. It becomes who you are when no one is watching, when nothing feels exciting, when all you have is choice, and you choose well. Most people quit because the habit didn't shout back. It didn't reward them fast enough. It didn't feel like progress. But the strongest habits are the ones that don't perform. They stabilize you. They anchor you. They keep you from drifting when everything around you is chaos. So here's the shift. Stop chasing habits that impress others. Start cultivating habits that protect you. Wake up early, not to be ahead of others, but to be present with yourself. Drink water, not to optimize, but to honor your body's rhythm. Write in silence, not to go viral, but to hear your own voice again. These are not small things. They're quiet revolutions, because every time you repeat a quiet habit, you're telling your mind, I'm not here to perform. I'm here to be consistent. And that consistency becomes a form of peace. A way of moving through life without being pulled apart by every urgency, every trend, every demand. Most of the time, no one will notice. They won't congratulate you for sitting with your thoughts instead of escaping them. But you'll notice, and that's what matters. Because when you look back, you won't remember the dramatic changes. You'll remember the mornings you chose yourself, the days you protected your rhythm, the moments you stayed grounded when everything else tried to shake you. And that memory will be more powerful than any praise. So keep showing up quietly, deliberately, for the habits that don't shout, but shape you anyway. People imagine mastery as something loud, something visible, a kind of dominance over life, sharp, confident, always in control. But real mastery doesn't look like power, it feels like peace. It's not about control over others. It's about clarity within yourself. You stop needing to rush. You stop reacting to everything. You stop trying to prove what's already known to yourself. Mastery is when you move slower because you're no longer chasing. You respond instead of defend. You listen instead of interrupt. You observe instead of panic. It's not passive, it's deliberate. It's the ability to remain grounded even when the storm picks up again. And you don't build it by force, you build it quietly, in private, in the repetition of choices that no one applauds, but you feel. Mastery comes when you no longer betray your rhythm just to keep pace with someone else's. It's when silence becomes your baseline, not because you have nothing to say, but because you're not trying to be heard by everyone anymore. It's when presence replaces performance, when simplicity replaces complexity, when the chaos still exists, but it no longer controls you. That's mastery. And no, it doesn't always feel glamorous. Most of the time, it feels like doing the right thing, quietly, consistently, without needing attention for it. It feels like pausing before you speak. It feels like letting go of what no longer matches your energy. It feels like waking up and choosing intention again and again, even when no one else sees it. And the more you live this way, the less interested you become in looking powerful. Because real strength isn't about appearing strong. It's about not needing to prove it anymore. It's about holding yourself without tension, without resistance, without apology. You walk differently. Not faster, not louder, just more whole. So ask yourself quietly, what does mastery feel like in my life? Maybe it's in how you hold your mornings. Maybe it's in how you protect your peace. Maybe it's in how you choose your energy, not by impulse, but by design. You don't need a title. You don't need recognition. You don't need permission. You just need awareness and repetition. Because the truth is, you're already shaping your mastery. In every breath you take with presence, in every boundary you keep without anger, in every task you complete without rushing. And when you live like that, you don't need to say you're in control. Everyone can feel it, especially you. You've heard enough advice, enough voices telling you what to do, enough rules, enough noise. But deep down, you already knew. You didn't need more information. You needed to remember what got buried under years of rushing, pleasing, and surviving. All of this, these silent acts, these small morning rituals, they're not here to turn you into someone else. They're here to bring you back to the part of you that was never broken, never fake, never lost, only forgotten. Back to the breath that was always yours. Back to the pace that always felt right. Back to the presence you abandoned when the world demanded too much. You don't need to build a new identity. You need to uncover the one you were forced to hide. You don't need to chase peace. You need to remove what blocks it. And most of the time, it's not something loud. It's something invisible, a thought, a reflex, a habit of looking outward instead of inward. But now, you see it. You've felt what happens when you move with intention, when you protect your mornings, when you breathe before answering, when you walk without rushing, when you write one sentence that anchors your soul. That's not self-help, that's self-respect. That's what real transformation looks like. Quiet, steady, deep, and no, the world may not notice. You might not get applause. You might even feel like nothing's changed. But listen closely. You're not reacting the same way. You're not rushing the same way. You're not abandoning yourself the same way. And that means something. That means everything. Because from now on, you don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to escape to find yourself. You don't need to burn out to be valuable. You just need to return. Each morning, each breath, each choice. That's your power. Not in volume, but in alignment. Not in what you conquer, but in what you hold. And when you forget, because you will, just come back to the silence. It will still be there, waiting, not to judge, but to welcome you home. This isn't the end. It's a beginning, one you won't need to announce, because it will speak through how you move, how you listen, how you show up for yourself without needing permission. So go, not to perform, but to live, like someone who finally remembered that peace isn't a destination, it's a direction, and you've already started walking. If you stayed until now, it wasn't by accident. Maybe something in you has been needing this silence for a long time. A pause, a reflection, a quiet mirror held up not to fix you, but to remind you that you were never too far gone to begin again. So if something in this journey stayed with you, don't rush to the next thing. Let it sit, let it echo, let it root itself before the noise pulls you back into distraction. And if you feel like sharing, not out of obligation, but out of resonance, leave a silent trace here. You don't need to explain. You don't need to perform. Just leave something for someone else who might be reading in silence too. A word, an emoji, a breath in the form of text. Because sometimes what heals us is knowing we're not the only ones waking up like this. And if this felt like home, you can return here tomorrow. This space won't demand, it won't push, it will wait quietly for when you're ready to begin again. For when you want to remember that even in a loud world, you still have the right to move in silence. To change without shouting, to heal without announcing. And if someone comes to your mind, someone who's been rushing too much, carrying too much, forgetting who they are beneath the noise, send this to them, not as advice, but as an offering, as a small reminder that they're not alone, that even in the quiet, we're walking together, in presence, in breath, in silence that rebuilds.